Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. I'm so excited about the video today because all of my projects have been inspired by our vacation when we went to Berlin, Ohio and stayed in one of the Airbnb cottages from the White Cottage Company that you'll see on YouTube. When you walk in the door of the Apple Blossom Cottage, over on the right-hand wall, there is something that's similar to this. It's a long frame and it has 5 different slots in it. And Mary put 5 different botanicals in each of the windows. And then it had a little shelf up underneath it. So this was something that I found while we were thrifting in Ohio. It didn't come with a back, so I need to make a back. So I start out by tracing out the windows on just a piece of white poster board. And then once I traced it off and started cutting the big piece, I realized I didn't really need to do that. And you'll see what I come up with. And then I painted it with one of my favorite colors, which is Waverly chalk paint in the color moss. And actually, the cottage that we stayed in, a lot of the decor was with greens. And so it just kind of happened that it was the same greens that I like as well. Now, I'm going to share the link to a video that Mary put out from White Cottage Company this spring when she refreshed the cottage. And you're going to see some of the pieces that I'm recreating when you watch that video. And if you're ever interested in staying in one of her Airbnb cottages, I would highly recommend it because they are so beautifully curated. And just the view out on the back patio is amazing. And we had so much fun and it was such a peaceful area. But it was just so much fun to be in that area, where we all know that Mary lives and just all of the beautiful scenery that you'll see when you're just driving down the country roads. So I paint all of the front, but I don't paint the back yet. I'm going to go back and paint that at the very end. So I went to Dollar Tree and I got a white piece of foam board. And I actually just measured it, that one whole big piece of the poster board. And I'm laying it down with clamps on the backside just so I can kind of measure and see how much it needs to be on the backside of it. And where I'll know where to put the transfers. And these transfers come from the IOD Summer Release Rose Botanical. Now, in the picture frame with all the different botanicals, Mary had 5 different colors. But because this is going to be going in my bathroom, and these are the colors that I love so much, I just decided to use all of the florals that were the same color, but they're just different designs. So I'll lay it all out, and then I'm going to unclamp it and let that foam board just lay down on the table. And then I'll just use the transfer tool that comes with the transfers. And you just rub those all down. Now, I painted that foam board actually with Dixie Belle Fluff, which is sort of a really off-white white, and it's not really bright. And then I sprayed it with Rust-Oleum Clear Sealer before I even started to put the transfers down. And if you've not used a transfer, it's really important to seal your product first. And then afterwards, I will seal it again. And then when you do those transfers, use the little tool that comes with it and just rub over it. And then you'll just start back at the beginning and just pull up that plastic as you go. And then once you finish all of it, you'll just use that plastic and rub over that design. And if there's any little loose pieces, then that just kind of pushes them down. And that's called burnishing it. And there's a lot of script that comes in that transfer set. So because there's a little gap up at the top middle frame, I put a little bit of script up there at the top. And then once I glued it in, I noticed that there was one little spot that I needed to add just a little bit of script, and I went back and I did that as well. But I really like these colors, these sort of peachy colors with that moss green. So this will be going in my bathroom. And before I forget, I want to make sure to let you know to make go to my Facebook page, which is called Farm Fresh Designs. There's not a 59 at the end because I have started doing some live videos on my Facebook page, and it's going to be things that you will not see on my YouTube channel. So I encourage you to go to my Facebook page and like that page and follow, and then that way you'll see when I come out with new projects that you won't find on my YouTube videos. So once I get it all transferred down, I just use Tite Bond Thick and Quick, and I put it all around the edge, and then I'm going to lay that foam board on top and clamp it down, and I need it to lay down right in the middle. And then after that's all dry and I remove those clamps, then I go back and I paint the entire backside with that moss green paint. But what do you think? I just love it. I love it because of the colors, but it also because it's a sweet reminder of the vacation that we had. And the vacation was actually the week after the summer release. So I worked really hard on my projects for the summer release. So this was just a great respite after being so busy right there at the beginning of the month. So what do you think? And do you watch Mary on White Cottage Company? If not, you are missing out on a real treat because she has a wonderful channel. So if you're enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and become part of our family. So let's keep going. So while we were there, we went to a craft mall, and this was just a piece that I picked up, and they had a lot of wood cuts. And this isn't something that I saw in Mary's cottage, but I liked it just because it reminded me so much of something that she would do. And so I'm actually painting this with Waverly chalk paint in the color Dusk, which is sort of a mix between a blue and a duck egg color. And it's, for some reason, a little bit thinner than the other Waverly paints, so I had to put several coats on this one. And I go ahead and coat the entire part, and then I'm going to be putting some Rust-Oleum clear sealer on it because I want to put a transfer on it. And if you watch Mary's channel, you will know that she has an Etsy shop. And one of the things that she does sell are different wood shapes that you can use for risers. And so when I saw this shape, it reminded me of things that Mary actually sells on her Etsy shop. And the booth that I bought this at was had, I think, a 40% off sale. So I got it at a really crazy price. And once I painted it and put the sealer on it, this comes from the IOD Traditional Pots transfer set. And this is actually one of the white transfers. And this is sort of an older transfer, but it's just a really classic transfer set that you can find so many uses for. And I'm not really sure how many transfers come in this set, but different transfers come in black, and some of them are navy blue, and then there are actually some in white. So check that out, and I will make sure to put a link in the description box below to Decoupage Central. And Jonelle at Decoupage Central carries a lot of the IOD products that are extremely popular right now, and she also carries some of the older transfers and the molds and the stamps. So I just put some little wooden beads down at the bottom because I'm going to turn this into a riser. And I use Tite Bond Thick and Quick to put them on. And then once they set up for just a little while, then I go back and I paint the entire back and the little legs with the same color of that Waverly chalk paint in the color Dusk, because I'll just be using this at home, and it's going to be something really great to put a candle on. And if I put a deeper sealer on it, it could actually be something I could put in my bathroom. Now, before I show you the finished product, I'm going to show you something else. This is just a little cutting board, but it's not made out of wood. I think it's probably MDF, and it was decorative. And I painted it black just to cover up that design on it. And now I'm going back and I'm going to paint the front of it with that Waverly chalk paint in the color Moss. And then once I get all finished, then I do go back and paint the back side of it as well. because on this particular project, I'm going to be using a stamp, and it's the stamp set that came out in the spring, and it's called Mercantile. Now, while we were there, we saw lots of fields and cows and all sorts of animals. We saw a goat that was tied up to a fence, and there was a little sign that said goat mowing, and it was just so appropriate, but we loved that area. So after I put a couple coats of paint on it, I'm using the IOD black ink, and I'm pulled off a lot of the pieces on this little stamp because I'm going to be using the little wreath that goes around, and I'm going to use the chicken. And I just thought it would be easier to leave it on that plastic sheet that it comes on. That way I knew the placement would be right. So once I ink up the design, I go ahead and hover over it to decide where I'm going to put it. And this is just a little tool that I get off of Amazon, and I'll share that link below. And it just kind of helps you to press down all of the ink. And then I raise it up just a little bit on either side without letting it come up completely, just to see if I missed any parts of it. Now, after that sets up for a little bit, it's permanent ink. Then I use the mask, and I set those on top of it because now I want to use the green stripe that comes in that stamp set. So you put the mask down so that when you do put that green stripe, it won't mess up any of that little wreath or the chicken. And you have to be really careful, and you have to push especially hard around those little masks because sometimes it's hard to get that ink to go down all the way up to that edge. And then when I stamped just a little bit up at the top, it was a little bit darker. So I just kind of lightly sanded it just to kind of see if you could not see the difference. And then when it was all dry, and that ink sets up pretty quick, then I used Dixie Belle clear wax to go all over it, because then I'm going to be using Dixie Belle brown wax, because ultimately the reason I'm using that is because when I stamped up at the top, the second part of the green stripe, I wanted to kind of cover up the difference in the ink. So I need to put just a little bow on it, and this is just some different ribbons and some canvas. And this is a little mini Bodabra that I get off of Amazon. And it's really neat. You just put that little strip of ribbon going up and down, and then you just push different little pieces down through that middle section. And I'm alternating this time. And then there's like a little tool that you'll press it down really, really hard and push those ribbons together. And then that ribbon that goes all the way from side to side, you pull it up, and then you tie it 2 or 3 times, and then you've got a pretty little ribbon. And that's the little tool that you'll use. And it just presses those ribbons down. It's a really great tool to make small bows, and they also make the larger Bodabras if you make a lot of wreaths. And then I'm going to be hot gluing this to the top of the cutting board. And then I put like a little button on top of that knot. And the reason I'm doing that is because in the kitchen, Mary had a cutting board that actually was engraved with White Cottage Company, and I loved using it. So when I found this cutting board, I knew this would be perfect inspiration. And these are those 2 pieces that just really inspired me while we were on vacation there. So what do you think? So the last piece, I actually had to have my husband to help me. So he took these little table legs that I had just out in the barn, and he cut them down because in just a minute you're going to see that they're attached to a wood cheese box. And I'm staining them with that Waverly Antique Stain, or I think it's called Antique Gel Stain. And so I just brush it on, and then I let it sit for just a little bit. And then I go back with a little baby wipe and wipe it back a little bit. And I do that to all 3 legs. But I needed his help cutting these legs and attaching it to the base of this cheese board. And then, cheese box. And then he actually put some screws in it from the inside of the box down into the leg to make it really sturdy. These were not glued on. And he used 3 legs because in the little dining area, if you watch Mary's video, you're going to see that she had something just like this, but she used it to put like a little plant that kind of draped down just a little bit. And you'll know if you've listened to my channel before that, well, I don't do really well with house plants. So you're going to see how I use mine just a little bit later. And I actually already had this wooden cheese box in my stash that I had thrifted. And so it just makes it really easy to wipe it on and then use that baby wipes to wipe it back. So I've got it turned upside down, and this time I'm using Dixie Belle cotton because I want mine to be more of a brighter white on this one. And I paint the sides, and then I also paint the inside of it. And then I actually do not go back and paint the base of it because the legs are stained. And I didn't feel like it needed to be painted on the underneath side because it's something that will just sit, on the floor. And I didn't need to seal this wood because the stain that was on it did not bleed through at all. But I did use several coats of paint to cover it up. Now on Mary's little planter, her legs were actually painted white, but I wanted to keep mine more stained. And when my husband cut these legs, he had to cut them at just a little angle so that they would lean out. And he's better at doing those technical things, so that was why I got him to do it for me. Now, the reason that I like this little planter was because Mary had put like the abbreviation for numbers, and then she put some different numbers and she stamped them on. Well, I tried stamping them on, and I made a mess. So I decided that I would stamp them on just a white napkin, and I'm using the IOD stamp set called Typesetting because the letters are just a little bit larger. And I wanted them to be a little bit larger because of the depth of the cheese box. And I'm using the IOD black ink. And after I stamp it, I just like to use a little baby wipe to try to get rid of any kind of excess ink. So I stamp it on this white napkin. And then later on, I go back and I peel off those extra layers so that I get just right down to that first ply of napkin. Now, my 7, I inked up and I stamped 7124. And my 7, well, it's just a little bit wonky, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. I just couldn't understand why I couldn't get my 7 to look just right. And then I used the larger letter and the smaller letter to ink up and do the abbreviation for number. And then I used the dot on the top of the lowercase I to put down at the bottom. And then actually because it's not super important to tear this, I actually just cut around the letters or the numbers that I stamped instead of tearing that napkin. And then it's kind of hard to do this, so I had to lay it down on the ground. And I just put some Mod Podge on there, and then I just laid that napkin on. And then that way, I know that it's going to be in just the right place. So this is how I'm going to style it. On this one, I'm using just like something you might put in a guest bathroom with some extra towels and a little hand towel and some wash towels and some soap and some shampoo. And then you'll see next that I stamped that I'm actually going to fill it up again. But this time I'm just going to put some throws like you might have, out in the living room or in your den. So that when, you're sitting there watching the Olympics on TV or something and you get chilly, you can just cover yourself up with a throw. and I put just like a little plant in it that's a faux plant. So what do you think? I love this. I'm not really sure. I wasn't sure this was going to be my favorite piece, but I really do like the way that it is styled. So friends, we are at the end of the video. I appreciate you so much for watching. In the comments below, let me know which is your favorite. And also, make sure to go out and watch the video that I will link down in the bottom to Mary's video for White Cottage Company. And you can see the pieces in her video that I recreated. But it was a wonderful experience, and we got to meet her husband, John, and he's just as nice as he can be. But I appreciate all of your support, and we are almost at 9,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for always watching my videos and subscribing. You are all just such a blessing to me. And if you ever get a chance to stay in one of her Airbnbs, you will not regret it, because it was just the most beautiful area that you could ever imagine. And we just had such a great time staying there, because everything in it was just perfection. She did such a great job of decorating these cottages, and everything in it was just wonderful, and we had a great time. So make sure, if you enjoyed the video, to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, and hit the notifications button so you'll be notified when I upload my next video. Have a wonderful week, friends. Thank you.